We have 3 topics today. Let's start with the ACC-SEC challenge has ended. 7-7 is the final results, unless my math is wrong. Not a math podcast, so don't hold me accountable for that. But interesting results here. I thought this was like a bunch of fun, entertaining games. I enjoyed it. I mean, it felt kind of like just replacement of the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Obviously, I missed my conference being in it, but in general, this was pretty good basketball. Some interesting things came out of this, though. I have one note that I marked down that I'm very excited to point out, and I'm curious if you'll get there before I say it. What was your biggest takeaway from the conclusion of this event?
That from the ACC perspective, I still have no clue on almost any of these teams outside of UNC. Like the Virginia Texas A&M result just didn't make sense because it was basically a complete flip from the Wisconsin. Like, and by the way, Virginia is literally playing 5 guards. I mean, Jacob Groves, the Oklahoma transfer, is playing the 5 spot for them. You got Ryan Vaughn, you got Dunn, you got McNeely. Like the fact that they're playing so small and it's still this formidable against opposing front courts is a problem. But this is a team that still can't score. They don't have much offensive firepower. Reese Beekman is basically the same guy he's always been. He's going to give you 10, 5, and 6, which is fine, but I just don't know what Virginia is going to do. Like, they're probably going to end up being 15-5 in league play, but I still am not going to like them at all. And Wake Forest is another one. I mean, they beat Florida, which was, I mean, everyone was riding high on Florida. Hunter Sal was 24 points. I mean, the Gonzaga transfer, he's been great. But they're also a team that can lose to Georgia, who, by the way, came back and beat Florida State last night. That was an interesting response. Pitt losing to Missouri, even though Pitt's defense looked fine, they couldn't score for 10 minutes. Virginia Tech, I think we can say, is bad. Now, I think we can actually say that the Rodney Rice departure for them is really, really going to hurt them. And then Duke, and you talked with Ralph on the recap. You know, all eyes are going to be on Tyrese Proctor and his struggles, but McCain and Foster have to do more than 1 or 12 combined from the field as well. And if they're not going to play any of the big Southside of Filipowski and Mitchell, they're all of a sudden don't have as many offensive weapons as I thought they have. And everyone said this, they were soft. They got fairly punked. Now, I'm not going to be mad that you lose a road game in Arkansas, but we still get to see them look actually good against good competition. So, you know, the ACC, you know, drew with the SEC. I think everyone has the SEC much higher. But, you know, this conference could be really weird again, and it might not only get about 4 or 5 bids because, quite frankly, teams from 3 to 13 can all literally beat each other any day of the week.
Okay. I agree with your takeaways. I'm trying to make sure I want to go as harsh as I'm going to go on this. I think outside of the top 4 to 5 maybe in the SEC, but top 4 teams, I think everybody in both of these conferences is extremely mediocre. That's my takeaway. Can we go game by game on this quickly? Yeah. And then I have a number here, but like just going game by game. Mississippi State losing to Georgia Tech. Both those teams stunk. And I get Mississippi State should be better, but that was 2 bad basketball teams that played in that game. Notre Dame, South Carolina, bad. LSU, Syracuse, horrible outside of Judah Mintz, who's fun. Missouri and Pitt, I get. We like Pitt. Missouri stinks. That was a really bad result for Pitt. And I still like Pitt. But that was old Pitt. That was old, ugly, bad basketball. NC State and Ole Miss, I thought was a horrible basketball game. Florida and Wake Forest, we're supposed to like Florida. They got wrecked in the second half against a bad Wake Forest team. Boston College and Vanderbilt, horrible basketball. Credit to Boston College for showing up. Bad basketball. Georgia, Florida State was an entertaining game. Georgia's bad. They're not supposed to win on the road in that game. And then you're left with Virginia Tech and Auburn. I thought Auburn looked good, and that's the team I would put 5th in the SEC. That's why they get 5 instead of 4.
Well, I would correct you on that. Auburn did not look good. Janai Broome looked good. And Chad Baker-Mazara looked good. Those guards were awful. And Aiden Holloway, you know, I mean, if for all the fun we made of Katie Johnson and Wendell Green, Holloway's look like green for a bit sometimes. Like that needs to improve because they're gonna go up against a team that actually has a front court to defend them. So Broome, great. The rest of the Auburn,
Yeah, after a really good start for Holloway, he's 5 for 26 from the floor in his last 3 games. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do with that. But that's my broad takeaway here is like, I think these conferences are both extremely top heavy. And say what you want about the Big Ten, there is no top other than Purdue, right? And Purdue barely even counts as a Big Ten team at this point. They should go be independent. They don't feel like a Big Ten team anymore. But outside of them, it's like, okay, there's a bunch of teams we wish were top 25, but in reality, it's like the number 1 team in the country, and then maybe 9 different teams that are anywhere from 30 to 60 in the country. That's how I view the Big Ten. But the ACC and the SEC don't have that. Like there's teams that are supposed to be top 20 in the country at the top in both have like 4 to 5. And then when you drop to 6 in the ACC or the SEC, it's like a team that's barely top 100 in the country to me. And I don't know what you do with that. I know the ACC's gotten hit where they don't have a lot of bids in recent years. The SEC seems like they pump a bunch of teams into the NCAA tournament every year. But like, look at last year. Texas A&M went 15-5 in the SEC, got steamrolled by Penn State when they got to the tournament. So that's just a weird takeaway I had. Was like, I expected this to feel like a really big time event. And instead, I came away feeling like it was super top heavy with a bunch of mediocre basketball outside of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it positively, Wake Forest really struggled in the first couple weeks. They still have potential, but they don't have the Maury Monsanto. They're still waiting on Ethan Reed waiver. If they can get consistent production from anywhere outside the top 3, they could be a good team. I just, like you said, like none of these teams are bad, which is to start somewhere. Like none of these teams are awful outside of Louisville, but the problem is if they don't in the next month start getting bigger wins, then all they're going to do, we're going to have a whole bunch of teams 10-10 in league play, 12-8 in league play with mediocre records. Like Wake Forest is setting themselves up once again to have 5 non-con losses, go 12-8 in league play, look like a tournament team, and they're going to be right on the bubble. And then even right now, like Pitt, like people are impressed with Pitt, but Oregon State's the best one they have. Like, that's not good enough. And Oregon State's basically a bye-game opponent. Like, if they lose to Clemson on Saturday, then they're going to have a bunch of more bye games to round out the schedule because West Virginia on the road is not going to matter much. It's you don't want to get nervous when it comes to resume building, but how many signature games do you have coming up? Like, at least North Carolina, looking as good as they did against Tennessee, gives you hope that UNC can actually be top 10 potential. But even them showed some flaws in the battle for it.
Yeah. So here's the number. To define, even while I'm saying it's top heavy, but just to define how unimpressed I was with a lot of these games. There were 8 teams that entered this event in both conferences total. 8 teams that were ranked in the top 25 AP poll. They went 2-6 in this event, and the 2 wins were games between ranked teams. So somebody had to win. Like, there were 4 different games that a ranked team lost to an unranked team in this event. I don't think that's good. And I know that should work in conflict with what I'm saying of like, oh, maybe there is a middle class that deserves mention. In reality, I don't think it's that. I think it's that the elite teams in this conference or in these conferences are not as elite as we wish they were. And the middle is not as good as we wish it was. And look, the country at large, I think, is falling victim to this too. There's a level playing field. So I don't mean to like make it relative and say these conferences are awful and write them off. But I came away pretty unimpressed with everybody across the board here. That's not North Carolina and that's not Kentucky. Like, those were the big winners here, right? You have North Carolina, who now looks like they should win the ACC, Kentucky, who now looks like they should win the SEC, and then a bunch of what ifs.
But here's the good news, though. If you're an ACC fan like myself, I'll ask you this. Has the Pac-12 looked impressive outside of Arizona?
I think UCLA had moments in Maui.
But largely outside of top 3 or 4, you're not impressed.
I don't know. I honestly think there's more there than there is in the ACC or the SEC right now. I know
Like
that
what?
sounds crazy.
Like Washington?
No, but I think Utah has earned their keep thus far. I think even though we're skeptical with Colorado, that's a team that like I would put in like the 5th range in the ACC right now. I think UCLA has a higher ceiling than anybody that's not Duke and Carolina. I think USC looks really good.
Well, I guess overall, outside of the Big 12, no one else has really looked dominant in terms of a conference that's going to snatch up a bunch of bids. Like the Big 10 will get theirs because, they play the numbers well. The Big East, outside the top 4, have had its struggles. I mean, St. Mary's falling apart. That's probably going to be a bid that opens up. I mean, the Mountain West, Colorado State looks good, but how has New Mexico and Boise State looked good? So I wouldn't pay. I agree that it's more balanced overall. And if you're, the A10 or some other leagues hoping to try to sneak out another bid, it's been a fairly decent process. Although a lot of teams now have resume builders to speak on if they start to go on a roll.
Are we saying the sport is cooked? Is that the takeaway here?
I don't think balance means it's cooked. Not yet.
Okay. All right. I'm just kind of dreading where we're headed here. We're looking at every conference being like, yeah, there's a lot of average teams at best. I don't like that because last year we ended up with 3 average teams in the Final Four, and I just hated that. I want some good teams to play good, please. Okay. All right. Let's move on. But thank you for admitting the ACC stinks and Pitt's a bubble team at best. That was very nice of you. Let's move on.
You're welcome, fellow bubble team.
Where would Michigan finish in the ACC?
Like 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's low. That's really
What do you mean low? Okay, y'all have all you have is a win over Stanford. Congratulations, Stanford and St. John's. That's what you hang your hat on.
Yeah, St. John's is our best win, not Stanford.
Yeah, that's what is, and then you're all of a sudden a very good team.
No, I'm saying the ACC stinks, so we would finish like 4th in it.
And no, y'all stink too, so y'all would be just right in the field.
Nah,
everybody's stinking.
Nah.
Yeah, y'all defense stinks. So when Hunter Styles drops 40 on you, yeah, you stink.
Oh man, I would love to play Hunter Salas instead of I don't know, go to the Kohl Center. I would love to, truly. Anyways, let's move on.